We hope you enjoy this episode of the Modern Divorce Podcast. But first, an important message for our listeners.
Hi, this is attorney Billie Tarascio, and my partner Julie and I have created a resource for you if you are representing yourself in family court. No one should go into family court without knowing the basics, and we will teach you everything you need to know at Win Without Law School to represent yourself with confidence. We'll teach you how to get exhibits in, how to draft your pretrial statements, and how to speak to the judge so the judge will listen. We'll teach you how to defend against false accusations and everything you need to know to be an effective advocate, both if you're negotiating or if you're presenting evidence. Don't wait. Go to winwithoutlawschool.com. We can help you.
Hello, and welcome to a special episode of the Modern Divorce Podcast. I am your host, Billie Tarascio, owner of Modern Law, co-owner of Win Without Law School. Today, I am joined by our marketing manager, Sarah Encarnation. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me as a guest again on the Modern Divorce Podcast.
I am so happy that you're here. So can you tell people what we're talking about today?
Today, we are talking about The Sister Wives, a huge TV show, lots of fans, 18 seasons, kind of a big deal.
We're talking about the Browns, Cody, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robin.
Oh my goodness, you got them all. Yes, yes, all of them.
And their children and their businesses and all of the legal issues surrounding couples and families that choose to live in a non-traditional plural marriage situation. So I'm so excited to dig in. This was your idea. Thank you so much. What do you want to give people a little intro and then we'll dive in?
Sure. So as I mentioned, there's 18 seasons. This show has been around since 2010. There's a lot here, and I was somehow able to put it into about 10 bullet points. The show started in 2010. The Browns had a family unit for 16 to 17 years at this point. A lot of people don't know this. They were well established before TLC came into their lives and started filming everything. I think they had about 13 kids at that point.
Wait. So I just want to make sure I understand. Yeah. 18 years ago, when they started filming, they had already been together for 13 years.
So in 2010, they had been together for about 16 or so years as a whole unit. Yep. The first wife, I believe, they were legally married. It's the only one who's legally married was Mary, wife number one, in 1990. And I think the third one, Christine, had come in like 93, 94. So yeah, they've been around for a while.
Okay. And at this point, not to jump ahead, but
no, totally fine.
Okay, no, keep going. It's so juicy.
It is juicy. They all lived in this mega house, which was basically an apartment. I think they said it was actually built by somebody who was also polygamist. So it was perfect for them. They were in Utah. Each mom had her own unit in this house. It worked. A few episodes in, Cody, father, the husband, he gathers the whole family together. It was like a press conference. And he tells them that he's courting another woman named Robin. She's divorced and has 3 kids. They eventually get married. And at this point in the show, I'm like, wow. Like, you've got so much going on, dude. But, didn't want to judge. Super interesting at this point. Next thing you know, they're moving to Las Vegas. Like, this whole family, the new wife, her kid, they're moving to Las Vegas because they're under investigation for bigamy, which was illegal in Utah.
And it's illegal everywhere, but the definition in Utah is very different than the definition of bigamy in Arizona or in Las Vegas, which is one of the things that I needed to figure out is like, well, why is it legal for them to be together in all these other places, but not Utah? How does Utah really make it illegal for people to enter into spiritual marriages? Because as far as I understand, he's only legally married to one at a time. And first he married Mary. Then later he divorced Mary so that he could marry Robin, his one love, and adopt her children.
Yep.
So we got to talk about that too.
Oh, we could do a whole episode on like the legislation with bigamy in Utah. And I know the Browns were heavily involved in some of the changes. It's really, we could do a whole episode. It's super fascinating. So yeah, we've got this huge family and now they're moving to Las Vegas and it's super stressful to just watch. They move into 4 rentals. They somehow find 4 rental homes. They move in. And then they find like this cul-de-sac. It's undeveloped, it's just land. And they somehow find the funding to build 4 homes on this land. And it worked for them and their vision. They wanted to be very close. Cody always said, I don't want my children to be raised as cousins. I want them to be raised as siblings, right? So it was perfect. Each home was like $450K each. I'm super
Wow.
interested in like, how did they get this money? Like, how
Yeah.
did they do that? But
We got to talk about the money.
we gotta talk about the money. They had a few more kids. Like you said, Billy, Mary and Cody ended up divorcing. So so Cody and Robin, the love of his life, could legally marry for the purpose of him being able to adopt her 3 kids.
Right. Right.
The most shocking for me was they're living like in this cul-de-sac. Things are working out. Like they've had a few more kids. And then one day Cody's like, hey, we are going to move to Flagstaff. I was like, what? Why?
Right.
That's insane. Right. So
Right.
they moved to Flagstaff, and some people say it's because they had balloon mortgages that were going to be increasing soon.
Sure.
That would make sense.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible.
Yep. And then they have this vision to buy a big chunk of land and to build more homes on that land. And so this land was super expensive. They couldn't build anything until they paid it off, whatever. But in the meantime, because now they don't have homes because they're in the process of selling their Las Vegas, like $2 million worth of homes, right?
Right.
They move into rentals. 3 of them move into rentals. One of them purchases a home instead of getting a rental. And one of those wives, Robin, she ends up purchasing a home, which was like $1 million. I'm not even joking.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, I think 890,000. It was up there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, I saw that Mary has some independent businesses,
Oh, yeah, she does.
LuLaRoe and a bed and breakfast.
Yes.
And she's bringing in money.
Mm.
What do the others do for work in addition to, of course, getting paid to be on the show?
Oh, goodness. I think Robin was running their, at least I'm not sure if towards the end she was, but at some point she was making money from running their family business, Our Sister Wives Closet, where they were selling jewelry marketed to other polygamists.
Oh, okay. Polygamist jewelry is the
Polygamist
family
jewelry.
business.
Family business, and by that I mean the family's money was financing it, but Robin
Sure.
was really the one managing.
Yeah. Okay. So Robin has that job managing that, which we call the family business. I'd be very interested to look at the Corporation Commission's website and find out
Yep.
how these entities are titled. And so one of my lawyer brain, like we got to
Yes.
talk about bigamy, we got to talk about partnerships, general partnerships, entities, how those work, marriage, child support, property, and then you've got a bunch of questions too, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so should we just dive into your questions?
Yes, I want to give a shout out to this Facebook group that I'm part of, Sister Wives Uncensored. So a few days ago, I reached out in there. I said, hey guys, doing this podcast, work for a divorce and family law firm. What are your legal questions? And I got so much activity, so many responses. And these questions come from the people in the group who responded. So shout out to
Thank
them.
you. Thank you,
you
Sister
so
Wives
much.
Uncensored. And then before we dive into the questions, fast forward to today. The status, as I understand it, is that the first 3 wives are no longer with Cody.
It's a little fuzzy.
Okay.
First one, no. Second one, Janelle, kind of. Third one, absolutely not. She just remarried. Congratulations, Christine.
Congratulations, Christine.
Yep.
Okay, so then he may still have one additional wife. He may have two wives who are wife number 2 and wife number 4, who he seems to be, well, first legally married to, and he seems to be truly in love with this woman, which is, of course, one of the risks with polygamy.
That can happen. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, got it. All right. So now the status is there. We're caught up. Let's dive into the questions.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about Christine. She's the wife that divorced. By divorce means spiritually. There was no legal marriage between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So when they had split up, they had a minor child.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, I forget how old she was, but she was a minor. And Christine's like, I want to move back to Utah. I want to sell this house that is all in my name. I want to move back to Utah. And Cody, who's like so ego stricken, I don't know if that's a word, by this, he says, this is quoted, you and I have to actually have a child custody agreement in place, or the state takes her, essentially becomes the owner of her. Cody later said, so I got to this child custody thing and I just started getting creative about it. He additionally said there is this thing in the manosphere where it says, if you're getting divorced, you're going to get screwed, bro. He explained that he lied to gain the upper hand in the custody battle because he didn't know what else to do.
Oh my gosh.
So interested in hearing like your whole take on this.
Okay, so Cody lies to his wife, and for the legal purposes, they were in Las Vegas at that point, right? Or were they in Arizona? They were in Arizona. Okay, so first, before we dive in, I just want to tell you about the bigamy statute in Utah. So the bigamy statute in Utah is from 2022, and it says an individual is guilty of bigamy if an individual purports to marry another individual,
Mm-hmm.
or knows or reasonably knows or should know that one or both of the individuals described are legally married to another individual. And then it talks about moving, cohabitating. An individual is guilty of second-degree felony if the individual cohabitates with another individual with whom the individual is engaged in bigamy. So that is, I think, the broadest definition of bigamy. I wonder if it's even constitutional. I really do. But that is why they couldn't live, because they were purporting to be married to one another. Now, in Arizona and in Las Vegas, actually, I don't know, I'm not a Nevada lawyer, but I looked up the definition of bigamy and it has to do with actual marriage. In Arizona, marriage is marriage is marriage. We have done extensive work trying to get people out of paying spousal maintenance when they had entered into permanent spousal maintenance agreements, and then their exes entered into essentially spiritual marriages and were behaving as if they were married and they weren't legally married. And in Arizona, marriage is legal marriage is legal marriage. So for our purposes, when we're talking about Christine, that's what we're talking about, Christine and Cody and their custody arrangement, we're talking about unwed parents from a legal standpoint. So then the question is, does the child of an unwed parent become property of the state if there's not a custody agreement and they don't live in the same state? Absolutely not. Like, that is the most ludicrous thing. And I can't help but wonder, like, Christine, you have Google, right?
She even said, she responded something like, that doesn't sound right, or I don't know about that. She challenged it.
But she didn't move.
She did end up moving.
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't know if they have something documented or if this was something that's written on a piece of paper somewhere. But she did proceed.
Okay, so she's back in Utah, and as far as we know, there's no custody agreement in place.
Don't quote me. I'm not sure.
We don't know, right?
They have something arranged based on what I've seen in episodes and in parenting time visitation.
Okay, so let's say they have an agreement, but it's not legal. Then what's going to happen is 6 months after that child lives in Utah, Utah is going to gain jurisdiction over the case under the UCCJEA, and Christine could then file for custody in Utah. If it has been less than 6 months and they lived in Arizona for at least 6 months, right?
I believe so.
Okay, then Arizona would have jurisdiction, and she could file in Arizona, or he could file in Arizona to get some sort of custody arrangement in place.
Sure. And just for the record, again, the state would not they would not be the owner of truly their mutual minor daughter.
No. And then it would come down to like what's in the best interest of the child in terms of visitation.
Mhm.
And of course, that would be a very interesting case to be a family law attorney on.
For sure. Here's another question. How many children does Cody Brown legally have? Which we know that. You don't have to answer that. In some states, it would require a DNA test to prove paternity, but only if requested by a court ruling. Was money ever put in a trust for the children from proceeds from the show? We obviously don't know that. Would the adult children have a viable case if they were to seek recompensation for residuals from being on the show?
Okay, so let's take these one at a time. The first thing is legally, how many children does he have? It depends on whether or not paternity has been established for all of these children. So in order to establish paternity in Arizona, you would sign a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity at the hospital when a baby's born. Now, I heard that Christine, I believe, was having a baby while Cody was out with Robin on an extended honeymoon. So it's quite possible that Cody didn't sign that voluntary acknowledgement of paternity. So if there are children of his and he has not done something to establish paternity, then they legally aren't his yet.
Sure. Well, so we know that there's gosh, how many are there? 18? I can't keep up. We know biologically, well, we can strongly assume biologically they are his, but for all we know, legally,
it may not be established yet. Yeah, right.
So biologically, all of them minus the 3, but maybe legally only 3, which is so weird to just, yeah.
I mean, you're right. It's totally possible. Now, that happens with unmarried parents all the time. Unmarried parents might have children and then not establish paternity until there's a reason to do so, either for child support or for another family law case.
Sure. So that was the first question.
And then would you mind reminding me the second question?
In some states, it would require a DNA test to prove paternity, but only if requested by a court ruling. Was money ever put in trust for the children from proceeds from the show?
Okay, so I can't really comment on the DNA test part, but I don't think we know if there's a trust with money. Actually, I think we can assume there isn't. I think we can assume based on their spending at least one prior bankruptcy, the amount of 3 prior bankruptcies.
3.
Okay. All right. So the amount of money that we can surmise that they're making, I did a little research and it looks like they are making anywhere between $250,000 and about $500,000 per season as a whole. So that means, I mean, I'd love to see that contract, but that means that the children don't have individual contracts, maybe weren't paid. And then, the question is, do child stars have the ability to sue their parents for mismanagement of funds? And we know they do, because we know that's happened in quite a few cases.
Sure.
But usually if the money's gone, the money's gone. Like if there's no money to be had, there's no lawsuit.
Right. Would the adult children have a viable case if they were to seek recompensation for residuals from being on the show? So I think your response might have taken care of that one too.
Well, the residual part would be interesting. So I don't know how much money they're making on an ongoing basis, but let's say there are some big passive streams of income. Then the question would be, were they an intended beneficiary of this contract with TLC? And if they were an intended beneficiary, then they have standing to sue for money.
Oh my gosh, sounds so scandalous.
So scandalous.
Here's another one. Well, a couple actually. People want to know, can Janelle and Christine, this was asked several times, can they go back and sue Cody for child support of the children? One specifically said, I know Savannah, that's Janelle's youngest child, who was a minor, when they moved to Flagstaff, but no longer is. She said, I know Savannah just graduated, but can she sue for back child support if Cody was neglecting their relationships?
Okay, so adult children can't sue for child support. they can't sue either parent for child support. So they can't sue the recipient parent who maybe mismanaged the child support. They can't sue the parent that was supposed to pay that didn't. They have no standing. Could you get back support? So in Arizona, you can get up to 3 years of discretionary. So it's discretionary, it's up to the judge, but you can get up to 3 years of retroactive child support, but not if you've lived together. So if and it's hard for me to say if these people were cohabitating or not, right? Were they?
This is where it gets weird. When they moved to Flagstaff, COVID happened at some point, and some argue that the downfall of this family was COVID and the fact that Cody was like, I'm going to live with Robin and her children full time, COVID, preference, whatever. And that's when he stopped spending time with them. And you hear it a lot on the show. They're like, he's not here anymore.
Sure. So I think for that period of time, they could qualify to seek retroactive support if the money is not all combined. And I saw at least at one point, there's a family account. So we don't know how they run their money and how they manage their money. Because let's talk about partnerships for a minute. There's something called a general partnership that can be entered into without a written agreement and without being filed with the court. You and I could create a general partnership if we went out and we started a hot dog stand together and we both worked together and we had a common purpose. We would have a general partnership, and the statutes would give us the rules for how general partnerships work, but both people are liable and can bind the partnership and make the other liable. It's almost like the concept of community property came out of the general partnership theory. Okay.
Gotcha.
So when you think about community property, where each of you are acting on behalf of the marriage, that came from the concept of how general partnerships work. These people had some sort of a partnership.
For
without
sure.
a doubt. And it's probably written down. And so I think you've got possible causes of action under those partnership theories, breach of duties to the partnership, that sort of thing. But if all the money was going into one pot and everybody had access to it, then you couldn't get retroactive support.
But what if Cody had other pots?
Well, right. Yeah. Or what if nobody did have access? Like, why were some properties titled in only one person's name? What is that? This doesn't make any sense to me.
I would love for Megan, our forensic accountant at Modern Law, to, explore this case. Or
Totally.
someone like Megan.
pull the deeds on the houses, pull the corporation commission documents, see what we can get from some tax returns. Like, let's analyze this.
It's amazing. And I don't want to accuse anybody of fraud. Like, that's so we're not going to do that, right? But there's a lot of history. There's like 3 bankruptcies, and people being listed on certain things and not, and money being moved around, and this mysterious family fund, but some of them have their own accounts or pots. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And I bet a lot of this is public information. So we may have to do a part 2.
That would be so fun. We should consider. So Janelle, back to Janelle. For example, are you saying Janelle could possibly get retroactive child support for the past few years?
Yes, I am. I mean, if Janelle wasn't being supported and they weren't living together, she qualifies in Arizona for up to 3 years of back support. Now, Janelle is living in Arizona.
She is.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
Wow. Let me ask you really quick, Billie. You said discretionary. So would things like thousands of hours of recorded episodes that were televised be, could they be considered evidence? So like if he was literally filmed, I just watched the latest episode last night. He's like, I don't know, I'm even looking at the sink. I'm never going to live here.
Yes. Yes. 100% yes. And we practice family law in Arizona, Janelle.
Somebody connect us with Janelle. Oh my gosh.
We can go on the show.
Amazing.
Yeah. So interesting.
So somebody asked, something about, in my state, if a child continues education and is still going to school, child support can go until the age of 26. Did we cover this one?
No, we haven't. In Arizona, child support does not go through college. In Oregon, where I was formerly licensed in work, it could, and it did go up to 21 if a child was in college. But in Arizona, it ends at 18 or 19, depending on when the child graduates.
Wow, okay. Let's see. Somebody asked, I'd like to know if Mary really needed to legally divorce Cody so that he had a chance to adopt her kids, or if the judge would have allowed it.
Let's definitely talk about that. And I just remembered, I missed something. So I said that children can't sue for child support in states where child support goes to college. Like once a child was 18 in Oregon and going to college, then they were entitled to support. And then at that point, the child could actually sue for child support. So
wow.
So when the child support is due to a parent, the child has no standing. But after they turn 18, if there's an order through college, then the child would have standing to sue for child support.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I should go back and find the person who asked that question and ask, like, what state are they in? I'm interested to know.
Sure. And then in terms of step parent adoption does require legal marriage. So it made perfect sense to me that if he wanted to do a step parent adoption, that he would get married. Although you can do an adoption without being a step parent. It's a different process, though. It is faster and easier to do a step parent adoption than another type of adoption. I have to wonder though, where are those children's father?
Oh, there's a whole thing on that. He's in Montana. Him and Robin, according to Robin, what she said on the episode, they had a very destructive marriage. They were monogamous. I know that the children were visiting, regularly, maybe like at least on a consistent basis, once or twice a year, something like that. I think that I did read somewhere that there might have been some conflict with that agreement because he had to agree to termination along those lines for Cody to be able to adopt.
Yeah, and I wonder like where that was. Was that in Nevada or was that here in Arizona?
So it definitely would not have been in Arizona.
Okay, because in Arizona, I doubt a judge would have allowed this because you can't just volunteer to terminate your parental rights. In Arizona, a judge has to find that that's in the children's best interest. And I don't know a ton about this case, but it sure as heck doesn't sound like it's in those children's best interest to lose their father who was part of their lives to go be part of, to lose that when they just could have had, Cody as a stepdad. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's layers to it. You should definitely look into it. Very interesting. Okay, moving on to finance/property. This is what we got a lot of questions about. To elaborate a little bit more, it was 2018, early 2019 when the family moved to Flagstaff. It took them 7 months to sell all 4 of those homes.
In Nevada?
So at certain times, like they were paying for this land, they're paying for these rentals in Arizona, and the mortgage in Arizona, and they were paying like mortgages for these homes. Like it was crazy, like so much money. Like I don't know, why did you guys go to Flagstaff?
Flagstaff's not cheap.
Not at all. They purchased that land in like 2019-ish. They collectively paid $8,200,000. Oh wait, no.
Say it again.
$820,000 for the land.
Wow.
Which was separated into 4 parcels, I think.
Okay.
3 approximately 2.5 acres. 1 was 5 acres, and it was owner financed.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting. They've just recently paid it all off.
Wow.
And so because it was owner financed, and maybe a couple other factors, they were not able to actually start building on it until that land was paid off.
Okay.
Again, just amazing to me. So according to deed records, Robin owns 52.3% of the land. Janelle owns 32.2%. Mary owns 15.5%. But each of the wives' acres are jointly owned by Cody, and his name appears on the deed for each parcel of land. So this gives Robin and Cody majority ownership of the whole property.
Okay, so Do you happen to know how these deeds are titled? Are they titled as joint tenants with a right of survivorship, or do we know
I don't.
how this is owned?
No, I don't.
Okay, so they must have done it this way probably to avoid having the property seized as part of bankruptcy, probably. Um, but it's just very interesting to me, like how they chose to title property and why.
And why?
And if they can still make the argument that all of this was part of a larger general partnership that they were all equal owners to, I feel like there's some meat to that argument. It's a creative argument, and I'm not a civil litigator, but I feel like that is something that if I were one of these wives, I would want to look into. Can I make an argument that this is a general partnership where we are all equal owners, and therefore can I get my share?
Wow. So what you said is huge. And I think that's what a lot of people want to know. So can you repeat that?
Sure. So understanding that disclaimer,
Yes.
I would go see
Indeed.
a lawyer who knew more about this than but I am very creative. So I think that an argument can be made that this family is a general partnership and that they all work on behalf of one another for a common business purpose. And then they would all be equal owners. Now that may or may not be a good idea, depending on like, does this general partnership, are they in debt or do they have assets? Like what's the net worth? Like what are the how can we get this divided? But my primary interest would be, how do we protect all of these wives?
Well, so Robin in 2019, they purchased this house for almost 900K. It's like 4,400 square feet. It's huge. It's almost $1 million. It costs more than the property.
Is it in Flagstaff on the land?
It's not on the land.
It's a separate piece of real estate.
Separate piece of real estate.
Titled in Robin and Cody's name. Okay.
Supposedly it has increased. Its value has increased by 150%. And according to Zillow, it's now worth an estimated $1.6 million.
Okay, so then it might be worth talking to a lawyer about this general partnership concept theory that I have to see if there's any legitimacy to it, because that is, yeah, if you bought property in Flagstaff in 2019, it's worth a lot more now.
Interesting. So do Janelle and Mary and Christine have any legal right to the shared property? I think we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, so on its face, no. There's this thing called the statute of frauds that says any agreements that have to do with property, specifically real property, has to be in writing. So that might trump my general partnership concept theory. But if there is a contract between these people, and I think there's some sort of contract between them, and you can sufficiently determine what the terms of that contract are, and somebody's breached the contract, then you would have a claim.
Interesting.
So we'd have to determine, what is the agreement? Like, what did these people agree to? If they agreed that they would all be spiritually married and that had nothing to do with any business, it had everything to do with how they were going to raise their kids and sex, and I don't even know if that is a enforceable contract, of course, because there's some things that you can't contract for. So it's a crazy legal issue.
A lot of crazy legal issues, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, I'm with most here. What legal recourse for the wives financially, and what about an audit of the family account?
Yeah, an audit of a family account could totally be reasonable, especially if they were all owners and if there was an agreement on how this money would be paid. Now, typically within a marriage, and back to the general partnership, each partner is able to bind the other. So I can go spend money on behalf of my family, and my family is stuck with my decisions unless there's some sort of a waste or breach of fiduciary duty, right? Waste is the same thing kind of as a breach of a fiduciary duty, where you have a general obligation to use the money from the partnership on behalf of the partnership. But since Robin was then part of the partnership, could Cody and Robin argue that even the spending on their behalf was part of the overall partnership plan to grow their huge family, and everybody consented to it? So child support's straightforward. The rest of it isn't. We'd have to look at how each thing was titled, if there was any overarching agreements, if those agreements are enforceable. Also, the other thing that you could look at is an unpaid wages claim. I had a client once that was in a situation a little bit like this, where she took a job as a nanny and she moved in with this family, and it turned out that they were essentially a polygamous cult. And she was 19, yes, and she got roped in, and she lived there for years, and she ended up having a child, and she escaped in the middle of the night with her mother and her child, and I represented her. And one of the claims that she had was she was, you know, made to work and never paid. So like an unpaid wages claim or or an employment law claim was something that was possible. So the sister wives may be able to look into that.
Sure. Oh my gosh.
Gotta love family law.
Yeah. So if Cody and Robin were being sued for the money Mary and Janelle put into the big house, because that's important. Some of the wives use the proceeds from their Las Vegas home sales to fund the big house, as they call it, the mansion. So they assisted with the down payment on that.
Okay, so then the question here is, what was that contribution? Was it a gift? Probably not. Probably not. It was probably funds used with some sort of expectation for a return. So there's probably some sort of contract there or breach of contract claim.
Okay. It's supposedly Cody has been taking his name off things. I don't know a whole lot on that, but let's say this person means that he took his name off of, you know,
that big house,
the mansion.
Sure.
Wouldn't the courts think that the timing of him doing that in consideration of the departure of the said woman out of the relationship, or would that depend on their contract signed, if any, beforehand?
Yeah, so it could be a fraudulent transfer. Sometimes people fraudulently transfer property for the purpose of getting it out of their names. And if you can prove that something's a fraudulent transfer, then you can set aside that transfer and still get to that money.
Yeah, I definitely would not be surprised if we learned in the future that there was some creative movement of funds within this family.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we could have lawsuits for years and years and decades. And it also seems like they have money.
Have had.
I mean, they've got assets. So figuring out how much money is at stake and what are all of the claims would absolutely be worth it, likely, for these wives.
And the last one in this section is, are the women entitled to alimony?
Yeah, so no, you have to be legally married to be entitled to spousal maintenance in the state of Arizona.
Okay, moving on to Janelle. I have a whole section on Janelle because the people love Janelle. Like, she's one of my favorite people on the show. She's amazing. She's this, very pragmatic personality. She's the one who manages a lot of their money and their finances. She just seems like easygoing, and she's great. So one of the most devastating moments of the show, in my opinion, was earlier in this season when things started to fall apart with Janelle and Cody. It's around Christmas time. She's living in this tiny apartment while Cody and Robin are living in their mansion. He's not even acknowledging their minor child. Even though it's the holidays, things are a disaster. So there's this video she recorded of herself. There's a Christmas tree in the background. She's crying. Janelle, has always regarded herself as the strong, independent, career-oriented woman, which is true. She's the one who's very involved. Janelle's amazing. She records herself like super emotional and crying, absolutely distraught. And she's not a crier, so it's evident she's not okay, right? She says, financially, I have nothing. Christine had the house. I had nothing. My name is on the property with everybody else. Probably nobody will cooperate now. I can't believe I'm 50 and I can't even do my own thing because I'm so tied up with them financially and I can't do anything. I'm stuck. I can't believe I got myself into this position. I know better.
That is so sad.
It crushed me. Like I might have even gotten teary-eyed.
So sad.
Yeah.
You should go see a lawyer, Janelle. We are professional problem solvers. Our job is to listen to your story and help you get a path out. You're probably not stuck. You probably have options. Not to say that your the way you feel is 1,000% legitimate, and we all wish we could go back and make different choices at certain times, but the best you can do at this moment is get your options, figure out your options, and make the best plan for you. And there comes a point in time when you're in your relationship, regardless of whether or not you're in a polygamous relationship or you're in a marriage or you're in any other type of partnership, where you have to ask yourself, is this partnership working for me?
Mm-hmm.
Is this partnership still mutually beneficial, or am I being taken advantage of? And if you're being taken advantage of, it's time to pull the plug. Nobody is going to look out for you like you are.
Gosh, I hope that she knows that, there's options and she's not feeling that way, still, because
how devastating, right? When you invest your love, your life, your time, your efforts into this joint venture, and then have your partners turn around and literally just screw you.
Sure. And add the element of like your partner, your spouse, who at one point he was so loving to these women. I really admired it and I respected him a lot. And he has all of these issues with some of the older children. They're harder to control once they get older, right? And one of Janelle's sons, oh my goodness, this broke my heart. They have a recording of him or an interview, and he was talking about, it was his birthday. His dad calls him. He thought his dad was going to say happy birthday, and they were talking about something completely irrelevant. And his dad completely didn't even realize it was his son's birthday.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just one example of, the conflict between Cody and his children. But that, for Janelle, I think was horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't imagine that he's the first dad to make that sort of mistake.
Sure.
But what did you do? Like, is that an example of you simply being uninvested and not caring? Probably. But probably this was just like icing on the cake that confirmed my dad doesn't love me. My dad's not paying attention to me.
Yep, exactly. So with Janelle, there's a lot of loyalty and concern from the fans, from the Sister Wives community, of people who really care about her and really want her to get some kind of like, I guess, justice or,
Yep.
So if you had a client in Janelle's position, what, if any, recourse would she have to get compensation from Cody and from Robin for the money they misspent? And what about on the marital home? Again, I want to mention when they moved to Flagstaff, Janelle gave half the proceeds from her Las Vegas home. So I'm thinking that was around $65K to help Robin purchase this Flagstaff mansion. And they, in addition to that, they pooled money from the family account.
So the question is why? Was it a gift? Or did you have an expectation for a return on your investment? And probably there was some sort of expectation, but we're going to have to be able to show that it wasn't a gift so that you can recoup that money. And then the other thing is like, is there a way to work something out here? Are these people still on speaking terms? Are they truly just enemies now?
I would sense that at least with Janelle and Cody and Robin, they are at least still on speaking terms.
Okay. Well, then how do we get a deal that is workable? Like maybe she takes the Flagstaff properties. You know what I mean? Like, let's figure out, like, kind of like if we just look at this as a divorce, let's figure out the net worth of the total family and figure out how might it be split. And is there a way to do that that would save them all from potential lawsuits? Because I'm suggesting there might be potential lawsuits.
Well, we know when Christine spiritually divorced, which again is not legal divorced, there was an agreement. So she had
Mhm.
this home and she sold it. And they had an agreement that she would keep all the proceeds from that sale, and he would, she sold them, I think, her parcel, her chunk of the land. Quick
So
deal.
the thing that's so fascinating about this is there is so much evidence. There's so much evidence of what they intended, what they bargained for, like what the deal was. And that can be a valid contract. Contracts don't have to be written to be valid, or not all of them.
Mm. Wow, that's important.
It is.
This podcast could be a total game changer.
Go ladies.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so I think this is one of our last questions. Being there's tons of proof of shared finances
Yes.
and cohabitation, couldn't Janelle take Cody to court and get her share? So
Possibly.
that.
Yes. I
Possibly.
mean, possibly. It's possible.
Mm-hmm. Also, is this likely why Cody has been taking his name off things lately, so she can't get anything if she comes after him?
Again, totally possible. And we have all this evidence of potential fraudulent transfer. Like, I think the show would probably love all of the lawsuits. It'd probably be great for the drama, but it's going to be, in my opinion, in these people's best interest to come up with a fair deal and settle, because litigation is incredibly expensive. And sometimes it's the only way to get to a fair result.
Do you know any civil litigators up there in Flagstaff?
So many. If you people are interested, contact me. We'll figure it out.
So could they possibly, so if for family law related stuff, like child support, I don't think custody would apply because, the children are all adults, I think, aside from Robin's children. But for things like child support, custody, if it applied, they could see us. And if they needed help with more of like the civil issues, we could help connect them to other people.
Well, yeah. So if the children are over age, they're not going to get child support, right? Or custody. So we're really talking about business issues. And I don't know, if they were interested in having me be involved, then I would probably co-counsel with somebody who operates in civil court or something like that. I don't know. It's not really my wheelhouse, even though it's very interesting. So we would just get them to the right people.
We would get them to the right people because they deserve to get to the right people.
They do. They deserve to get to the right people.
Well, this isn't even all of the questions that people were asking. I really do feel like we could do even more episodes.
Yes. Okay. Well, for today, let's wrap up this episode of the Modern Divorce Podcast. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. I think that there is some research in order so that we can figure out these ownership interests, do some searching, and then maybe talk about it. So people keep sending in your questions about this sister wives situation, and we'll see what we can figure out for you.
Yes. Love it.
One consistent theme you'll hear from me, Billie Tarascio, is that we do not believe in a one-size-fits-all solution. That's why at Modern Law, you can find anything you need for your family law case. For the highest stakes litigation cases, we've got experienced family law attorneys who can offer you representation. We also have embraced newly licensed legal paraprofessionals who can offer you legal representation for less. And if you just need your documents prepared, we can offer certified legal document preparers as well. If that's not for you and instead you are representing yourself, congratulations. You are like one of the 70% of people out there doing it on your own. And our newest offering, Win Without Law School, can help. For more information about Win Without Law School, go to winwithoutlawschool.com. To get representation options, go to mymodernlaw.com.